In the middle of his base, what's the nekuda that the Maimah is saying here? So to answer the question, how is it possible that one moment, which means really, as the Maimah is explaining, for the neshama to come down and to learn one letter, one word of Torah, just one, or one mitzvah is more than all of Chayei ha'olam haba. So explain that olam haba, the Gemara says, Menachas, ki be'ka Hashem tzur elamim. Again, the simple pshat is, ki be'ka, you find refuge in God, the former, the creator, the fashioner of the worlds. But a more literal rendering, as the Gemara explains it, is that the pasuk is describing how creation came into being. Ki, for, b'yud K, with the letters yud K of Shem Havaya, Hashem, tzur elamim, God formed the worlds, in plural. The Gemara continues that with Yud, Hashem created Elam Haba, and with the letter Hey, Elam Hazeh. All to say that Elam Haba is a very lofty revelation of the Eibishter's Chacham, which is wondrous and exalted. Nonetheless, a moment of tshuva and ma'asim tovim in this world, Torah mitzvahs, is greater still, because that draws on the source of Chachma, the Eirins of Mamish, the Eibishter himself. So this is a meidedike, there's tremendous ramifications with the appreciation of this, of a single mitzvah, a single word of Torah, for the neshama to come down to the world and just say or do or even hear. It's also part of it. A word of Torah, a letter, aleph, beis, it's more than all Elam Haba. And the reason for that is, I mean, again, some ramifications. One, for example, being why every moment the neshama is in the guf is beyond infinitely precious. Because that involves, in one way or another, mitzvah. People are doing things for the neshama. People are there for the person. There's mitzvahs going on, consciously or not consciously. Aside from the neshama just being in the guf for the allotted time, is everything. But it's all tied into this. But at any rate, what's the reason for that? The reason for this is because, as we just said, that in Torah mitzvahs, the Anoichi Havaya Likecha, so the Anoichi is present in every aspect, and not just the Anoichi, but the Aleph of Anoichi, which is Mamish, the Pnimis of the Pnimis, is present in every aspect of Torah. Every detail is everything. All Inyan Echad, as we explained yesterday from the Tisefta, that according to the Chachamim, or maybe Rabbi Meir, to look it up, I think it's the Chachamim, that one who asks a question of the sages, even though the subject matter is one thing, need not introduce his question by saying, I'm asking something of an Inyan Acher, another subject, because there is no other subject. Now, just to point out that we mentioned yesterday that we see this level of learning, Pashat in Nigle, by the Rebbe, namely, and this is based on the earlier Achronim, most notably the Roget Shover, most notably Rabbi Yosef Engel, also one of the greatest Achronim and a revolutionary thinkers and articulators of Torah. What's revolutionary, particularly about the Roget Shover, is, and this is a foundation in the Rebbe's Torah, the unity of Torah. First and foremost, Yishitasayu, that when two Tanoim argue, and they argue throughout Shas on a variety of unrelated subjects on the surface, completely unrelated. Laws of Tahara is one world, and the Zikin, damages, is another world, and there were Amoraim that you couldn't ask about one on the other because that was their expertise, Rabbi Yehuda, Rav, Shmuel. But the Tanoim who argue about different subjects, so the Rebbe explains that it's one Nekuda in all of them. Rabbi Shammai, Rabbi Hillel, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva. It's one nakuda, one essential perspective that, as a consequence of all of these different discussions and different conclusions throughout Shas, this is unique to the Rebbe's Torah. Again, based on the Rogatchover. In fact, there's a vote of the Rogatchover, the whole Torah is one nakuda. And that's because, why? Because fathoming the depth of Torah, we get closer and closer to the essential oneness. The closer and closer to the oneness, which means the author, the Eibishter, the one Eibishter, from which all this comes, which is expressive of the one God, to the deeper you probe Torah, the more oneness in your understanding of the given subject, and the more things are harmonious and seamless and one and unified. And moreover, the big chiddush, of course, in Chassidus, and particularly in the Rebbe's Sichos, is that even the arguments, in addition to explaining a particular Tana, that everything he says is expressive of one shita, one view, koyach and pearl, for example, Shammai and Hillel, and so on. In addition to that, even their argument is not this. No one's arguing in direct conflict. Is it now 5 o'clock or is it now 6 o'clock? So one is right and one is wrong, and both could be wrong. It's 10 after 6. It's not the nature of arguments throughout all of Torah as explained in the Rebbe's Torah. What is it? It's different perspectives on the same truth, and they're harmonious. Each one is masculine. That your perspective is true and your perspective is true. So what's the argument? There's no argument. They're just expressing these two perspectives, and they're both harmonious. They're layers to the same truth. Koyach and Poel, for example, the potential and actual, which is a huge, deep machlekes of Shammai and Hillel, they're not in conflict. Everything has the potential state and the actual state. So the halacha is always paskened in practical ruling in accordance with that articulation that speaks to our time now. This is what we can all relate to. In the case of Shammai and Hillel, the Poel. When Mashiach comes, halacha will be like Shammai, because then we relate to the same subject on a deeper, more transcendent level, Shammai. So the idea of oneness, of no machlekes, is critical and essential to the Rebbe's teachings, who reveals the etzem of every subject, relatively speaking, the etzem svara, the etzem concept in the machlekes. And then so many things happen, as we said yesterday, in the Rebbe's Torah and the Rebbe's articulation of Torah, the 4 levels of Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, which in their own worlds are completely incompatible, different rules, different language. The same word here means something else there, and you can't cross the lines between Medrash and Halacha and Pshat. And you look at the Sichos, when unlocking the essence of the story, the Halacha, they complement each other, they're harmonious, they become one unified truth. This is all the pre-Mashiach, approaching Mashiach appreciation of Hashem and His Torah, which is all one. And then
something, Tzvi Freeman has a quote a day on Chabad.org, and his quote this morning is, "There is nothing that does not have its truth. Without a spark of truth, it cannot exist." Right.
So that's true, even of creation. The closer we get to Mashiach's coming, and science helps us in seeing the unity. The discovery of the atom was a huge breakthrough in understanding that all things really are made up of the same stuff. Then it's gone far beyond that in the world of quantum physics, which is, again, just words for me, but it's some inkling of insight of the unity, the oneness, the mystery, the divinity that lies at the core of creation, even though it manifests in the most finite, limited objects that take up space, and nothing else can exist in that space, nothing more limited than that. Where I am, you can't be. There's nothing more limited than that. And yet, at the very profound level, there's this incredible interconnection between all things. And one of the great discoveries of quantum physics is that there's communication between particles faster than the speed of light, which was thought to be impossible, which is really beyond time. Well, he's seeing the infinite within physical creation. So the closer we get to Mashiach's coming, the more and more that the oneness pulsates and is accessible in creation. As I mentioned the other day, even or particularly the new so-called woke culture, which seeks to dissolve all hard differences between anything and everything, is really rooted in this very deep truth. So that's true. At the core, all things are essentially one, and all of the forms are fluid and integrated, and do not define ultimately what anything is by its external form. So there's a deep truth to that, and it's a deep longing and yearning for that. It's a very, very, very close, just below the surface Mashiach consciousness that again awaits all of us to spread Chassidus and say, well, this is what you're talking about. Here it is. And the collective, oh, so that's what we're feeling, what we're sensing. That's our mission now, is to spread the wellsprings of Chassidus. And it's not about convincing anybody of something that they don't already feel and seek and then are connecting to in some way or another. So continuing now the text, the Maimer, where are we up to? Yeah, we're up to the number 17 in the text. So even though he just said that there are 60 Masechtas and 80 Brises, which means collections of Brises. There are hundreds of thousands of Brises, but 80 groupings of them, and halachas without end. Still, it's all inyan echad. It's all one nekuda. Given shezeh ikir upnimius ve'etzem ha'Torah, because anoichi avalikecha. Rebbe says the aleph of anoichi, that is the essence of kol ha'Torah kula right there. In that aleph, in everything of it, its physical shape too, the nekuda above, the nekuda below, and the line that connects them in everything. Its meaning, its sound, its words. Its word, aleph is a word, aluf. Because the aleph expresses the etzem of Torah, it is beyond division. And in this nekuda is found and present the entire Torah. And what's that nekuda? Is elikus, the one God. And this is the importance of the bracha that we make over the Torah. The Gemara famously says in Baba Metzia, what caused the world to be destroyed, referring to the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. What was their terrible sin? Says the Gemara, they didn't make a bracha before they learned. Which on the surface is, what's so terrible? I mean, they observant Jews learn Torah when they're great scholars. You didn't make a bracha. We all know you're yotzeh and mitzvah without a bracha. What's the terrible sin? Then the code is, we see from this statement the greatness of and the critical importance of the bracha of a Torah relative to the actual study. Why? Because it's in the bracha that you acknowledge the author, and which means it's truth. It's only through making the bracha first, and bracha, as we all know, means to draw down, they're bringing into the world of the kus. That's the whole point of Torah. If it's not about revealing godliness in the world, then you're abusing Hashem's wisdom. It's only had they drawn the author of Torah into their Torah, they would have affected. There would never have been the destruction, and the Beis HaMikdash would exist till this very day. That didn't happen because they lost the connection with the Noisen Torah, the giver of Torah, and it was all just the intellectual exercise, even on a very spiritual level, but that's where they were locked. So when that is missing, the bracha, the author, the connection, the purpose of it all, the truth of it all, and the Alpha Pish ask about Torah, how to be, even though they were very involved in Torah, they were great scholars, they couldn't affect that the Beis Hamikdash, God's house, remained. Because what's the point of the house? It's where the one who lives there is expressed. So he's a prisoner in his own house. Such a house can't endure. Friends, we're familiar with this idea because this is like a foundation of the Rebbe's teachings, but this is like Tafshin Chaf Gimel. It's pretty early. When I was explaining this and laying it bare, laying it down, that even though the Torah itself is a deep Chachma, the bracha is not a deep understanding, it's a bracha. Acknowledgement that it's yours. It's simple. It's a simple statement, the bracha. It's no great intellectual profundity like the Torah analysis. But the whole foundation has to be the bracha. Because that is what Torah is. What Torah is in the bracha of Torah, not in the seichel of Torah. That's the garment of it. It's dafkin, the loy havon of asogya atmishal Torah. The essence of Torah is not in the grasp of it, intellectual gymnastics and analysis, but rather in the bracha. This is being bound up with the giver of Torah. What's the whole avodah is to draw it down in such a way that is pashit, to permeate and be present and be felt in every detail of Torah. Then every detail of Torah, it's you. That's the avodah. This is a hemshech to the first Maimah of Yud that talks about even the Talmud Chacham being like Parai. It could be even he learns, and it's all to feed his own ego, and gets insulted, and more than that, could even paskin. I don't know what's worse, but could even paskin something which is Heipach HaTorah, because that's how he understands it, and he won't relent. He won't relent because his ego is at stake. So this is the avodah is therefore to bring into Torah this nekuda of the author. However, so now we finish saying that the inyan of Anoichi, which is the Aleph, the Anoichi, the I, the Eibishter, that's the whole inyan. It's only one truth. On the other hand, we find that the word in Medrash that Anoichi is in fact not Hebrew but Egyptian. We all know that the Hebrew word Lashon HaKodesh for I is Ani, and Anoiki or Anoichi is Egyptian. It's a Semitic language, has a lot in common with Hebrew, but it's not Hebrew, which is astounding. It's beyond astounding. Harish Mitzrayim in Tachlis, I did the Lamata Mitzrayim is the absolute descent. How is it possible? When speaking about Matan Torah and Aseres HaDibros, Aseres HaDibros Guf HaDibur Arishin in Aseres HaDibros itself, the very first word, the very first commandment. But Dibur Arishin Guf, and the very first commandment, HaTev Arishin, or the very first word, in Tev Zur Lashon Mitzri. This word should be Egyptian. But to understand this in light of that which he explains in the Maimah Basel Gani in the paragraph that is shaykh to this year, Perek Gimel. But there he says, according to Zohar Binyan, Ais Pashtas the Ein Sof Lamat Adin Tachlis, the Ein Sof descends all the way down unfathomably. Shenim Shechom Mispashet Ad Madregya Hayese Tachtoino. That Ein Sof, which means God's investure is drawn all the way to the lowest level. Yochel is Dover HaHipach Melikos the Gamri. That the aim is to create something which is contrary to him. Just on the on a parallel level, again, everything that's spoken about Lamaila has a parallel within the person. That's the whole point. We look at ourselves and see how we work. We can appreciate the way it works Lamaila. As we mentioned before, what takes more effort, friends? What takes more effort? To express yourself freely, love to a loved one, where you want to express the love, or to tolerate, or even create an enemy. To contain yourself, the enemy is there, contrary to your will, and you're allowing that person's existence, and you're even feeding them. What takes more effort? The latter. You're more invested there. Be'etzem, not begoloi. That's how it works for us. Who is a true mighty person? Not the one that expresses himself, the one that contains himself. To control oneself takes more effort than to express yourself. Even though, for what? The viewer is saying nothing. You're silent. You want to say a nice lashon hara. It's really juicy. Everyone's going to laugh and get the real pleasure out of this. And it's the right time. It's not so terrible anyway. And you don't. So you're sitting there, your friends, they don't say anything. But Pnimius, the effort, I'm not going to say it, you're really expending more effort in not. So in the hell and the hester, likewise Lamaila, for the Eibishter to create that which is by concealing himself, that which therefore the result of that is something which doesn't know him. And a big example is when you actually do kindness or sustain your enemy. Whatever cheshmi, that takes greater effort and maturity. So likewise, Lamaila, for the Eibishter to create that which is contrary to the cause, he's really invested more, as it were. Now he's talking about it from a yid. That's for someone who forgets about God. Quoting from the Yisud Gimel of the previous Maimon. And Yos Bavose means he is literally arrogant in his being. He is full of himself, as we say. And as although to the extent the way it's expressed in Klippa, Mamish, Loima, that Pari said, the Nile is unto me, and I have made it, or I have made myself. This is the greatest opposite to truth, the complete denial of the emes. The emes, so Commissioner Kosov, as we learned in the Maimon at length, the truth is, Pari is, the point of the Maimon is, how is Pari able to say, I made the Nile? Who's going to take that seriously? Because when he would go to the Nile, it would rise. Why did it rise? Because Yaakov blessed him. Yaakov blessed him that the Nile should rise towards him, which creates the terrible question. You're setting him up for what? To be a deity, a self-proclaimed deity? Answer, this is the whole kavanah. Yaakov blessing him is expressive that even Paray and even Klippa comes from Elikus. And that's where that arrogance comes from. And the whole kavanah is to transform that. And it's the deepest, by Varech, it's the deepest levels of Elikus that produce a Paray. Which is why we said yesterday in davening that the word Paray itself, the Zohar says, is an allusion to the highest levels of Elikus. The highest revelation possible is Periyam Neikol Menhayrin, and Achashverosh, likewise in the Megillah, says in Medrash, Achashverosh, this who's a bigger Rasha and hated the Jews more than Haman, says the Medrash, this brilliant man who portrayed himself as a buffoon, which is the best way to get what you want. People don't take it seriously because in Yiddish, but he's the big manipulator in the whole story. It's Achashverosh, manipulating even Haman. And what does the Medrash say? That Achashverosh is a remez to the Eibishter. Acharis v'reishes shaloi. Same the beginning and end is unto him. So the emes is the biggest klipper. The emes is vayivorach Yaakov is Paray. The emes is that Paray is exploiting to become a god. Yaakov's bracha. Sheborach sheyalan is the cross that he benched him that the Nile should ascend when he approaches the river. And this is a tremendous hashpah, as we learned in the previous Maimon, had the Mitzrayim gone along with that and realized that the brachas from Yaakov and from Yidden would have been Shalom Al Yisrael, beautiful. Everybody would be happy. The Mitzrayim would be happy, and the Yidden would be happy, which is why we learned in the previous mind that Pnimius, when Yaakov died, everybody mourned. Even the Mitzrayim mourned. It was a terrible day of national mourning. On a deeper level, because they sensed that the bracha was only coming from here. But that was lost and exploited and turned against the Jews. Pari, the king of Mitzrayim, he's the king of limitations and Gvulim, he's the ultimate limitation. So he is exploiting, literally, his kafui, his kafui toiva, he is responding to goodness with not only with thanks, but with denying it and exploiting it. And this bracha that gets him Yaakov, he claims title to, it's mine and I made denial. So what's the point that I've been saying here? Why Anochi is Lashon Mitzri? In order to transform this lowest level of the yesh hanivra, the ultimate yesh as an ego, we have to draw on that which is beyond the system and draw on the yesh amiti, the true eye of God. And high, even in Yudke Vavke, which is the highest Eilam Haba, the highest levels of revelation. What can transform Paroi is the Anochi of God. That's why it's Lashon Mitzri, because to transform this world of complete denial and yeshes is only one address, the Yesh Amiti, the true being. No light can illuminate such darkness. There's a darkness which is an absence of light. Light can illuminate. Ignorance can be illuminated. This is not ignorance. This I know the truth and I'm denying it, exploiting it. So I'm going to enlighten you. I know the truth better than you. Pari doesn't know that bracha comes from Yaakov. You're going to give an explanation. There's no explanations. There's no light, no enlightenment, no madregi and ishtalshalus can illuminate that which knows the emes and exploits it and draws on that which is beyond the light itself, which is the bracha of Yaakov. So what's the only truth is? The only truth is, you know why you exist? Because there's a kavon of dira b'tachtonim, and in you, Atmos is going to be revealed. That's your truth. And that's why you feel this way. That's the truth is the only answer to this clip. Tam Adov, and he goes on to say, the reason is ki afshore shetila mata mitzias the Mitzrayim. How is it possible there could be such a reality of a Mitzrayim, which is a complete denial of the Eibushet? And point being added here, this cannot be produced by any level of divine revelation. Why? Because a source, listen carefully, a source, a creator can only produce that which is similar to it. Obviously. So light, the whole definition of light is it comes from a source. So when light creates, it will create that which knows it has a source, like light does. Oir cannot create Eilam Hazeh, which denies and exploits, denies God. Because light is going to produce, no matter how dimmed it is, no matter how limited, Oir will produce that which is also like Oir, which on some level naturally knows its source. So where comes this hergish, this sense that I am, that's because it comes from the true I am that I am. Because the created ego, which denies everything I am, is really rooted in the true yesh, the true ego, the true I am that I am, the Eibishter. And that's the answer, the only solution. Not enlightenment and explanations for Paroi, but it's to transform him by revealing Atzmos. How do we do that? Torah mitzvahs, the Anochi. Engage the world with in Torah mitzvahs. This transforms it. Therefore, Anochi is Lashon Mitzri, because in Mitzrayim, in the Yeshua Nivra, is invested and it's produced directly from the Yeshua Amiti. And this then happens, and this then transforms the darkness into light, because this is a kind of darkness, it's not the absence of light. This is a darkness which is a metzius. It's a metzius of darkness. Not because there's no enlightenment. How could it be a metzius of darkness? The only way that's possible is because it draws on the metzius of the Yoshes, Cheshech Sisrei, the true darkness, Lamaila, which means beyond revelation, Etzem. You following this? Spoke about this in early memory. That the Etzem is expressed in this metaphor of darkness because Etzem built in this Gal, it's not given to any revelation. It is, as we explained earlier. So then, Mizgal, the Inyan Shalamayla fil Mishem Avaya. So it's Dafka Lamata here that we reveal that which is beyond Shem Avaya. That's the Anoichi, which is why it's Dafka Loshen Mitzri, to be continued.